Now it's time for our favorite U.S. Report regular, Mick Mulvaney, and I'm going to get in trouble with all the other favorite U.S. Report regulars for that one. But anyway, Mick, thanks so much for being here, and we are going to change things up for our last show of the year by going back in time and looking at the top stories to come out of the U.S. 2022. Mick, your choice for number 3 is this year's midterm elections, that red wave turning into a ripple with Trump candidates taking a tumble. Talk us through it.
It was, James. It was a tough call. I was thinking about putting that NFT thing on my big 3 stories of the year, but it just didn't make the cut. So, the midterms, story number 3, there's no question. The red wave didn't come. Not only does it impact the Senate going forward, the Democrats control the Senate into the next 2 years, which is a big deal. But it also, as you and I have talked about a couple of different times, completely undermined Donald Trump's announcement that he's running for re-election and really has cut him off at the legs. He was planning on riding this red wave into 2023 and on into 2024. It didn't happen. It's a huge story. I'm not sure it gets the attention it needs worldwide, but it shook politics here in addition to the way the government is run.
Now, number 2 in your countdown, the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, back in August. In fact, I think I was on television with our mutual friend Laura Jays on AM Agenda here on Sky when that story broke. It was late in the evening in August, I think August 8th, when we found out the FBI had gone into Donald Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Why is this a big story? Why is it my number 2? A couple of different things. I think for a variety of reasons it sort of pulled the veil back and exposed a lot of weakness in the federal institutions where a lot of people now, even folks like myself who have been critical of Donald Trump over the course of the last several months, are saying that this was an overreach. This was a politicization of the power of the federal government. It got a lot of sympathy for former President Trump, and it has really got a lot of folks, including moderates, asking, are political parties using the government against their enemies? And that is a conversation we've never had in this country.
I think that is possibly the most important story of the year, but you've got another one, and it's a massive political issue this year, inflation. And no matter how many times Joe Biden tried to gaslight Americans into thinking the economy was fine, well, pretty clearly it's not.
Yeah, and they're now trying, remember that month when inflation was 8% one month and 8% the next month, and Joe Biden tried to convince people that meant there was no inflation? Now we're at inflation 7% this month. It was 9% last month. I'm waiting for Biden to come out and say it's deflation, which it's not, obviously. 7% inflation, 8%, 9%. That's a big number. It's not the 16, 17, 18% of the late 1970s. But this is a big number. Governments fall over heightened inflation for long periods of time. It cost Jimmy Carter a job. It costs governments jobs all over the world. Inflation is a really big story, and it's not going away. Yes, gas prices has come down here a little bit, but the fundamentals are still there. There's still too much spending. There's difficulties in the supply chain. There's difficulties in regulation. Inflation is not going away. I think it's the big story of 2023, not only on its own, but on the recession that may be necessary in order to bring it under control.
Well, I think that recession bit you mentioned, that's coming out of the other double whammy of this, or the other half of the double whammy, which is interest rates, which just keep going up and are making things harder for everybody, with a mortgage or a car loan. But I want to get, before we go here, your big prediction on what's going to happen in U.S. politics in 2023. Mick, what's your crystal ball telling us?
Yeah, I've been struggling about this. Should I have fun with it? Should I shoot for the moon, or should I give you something that's real? So I'll give you one that's real and one that shoots for the moon. The one that I think is real is that there's going to be a very dramatic couple of days here in early January. By the time I talk to you next time, we'll be talking about the election for the Speaker of the House, whether or not Kevin McCarthy has those votes. If you are sort of a geek when it comes to American politics, you follow this. This is red meat. This is the deep stuff. It's going to be fun that first week in January. But I think Kevin ultimately comes out the backside as the Speaker. That's my sort of reasonable pick. If I'm reaching for the moon, I'm telling you that Donald Trump pulls out of the race sometime this time next year, claiming a health crisis. Remember, you and I have talked about before, the only 2 reasons he wouldn't run is if he thinks he can lose and if he's got a health problem. What I didn't consider was a possibility that if he thought he could use, he might invent a health problem. So that's my shoot the moon for 2023, that Trump doesn't stand for re-election. He pulls out sometime next week. I give that a 1 in 100 chance, but in case I get it right, maybe I'll look pretty good going forward.
I don't know, Mick. I mean, how could he have a health problem? He's a superhero. Haven't you seen the NFT trading cards there? I mean, come on. Anyway, Mick, thank you so much. A very Merry Christmas to you and the whole Mulvaney family, and we look forward to catching up with you again in 2023.